Hey guys, good morning. I am doing the case study with the high school boys soccer team in preseason for the Discussion 6 post. And so the first part of it is to figure out what the team would need, so do a needs analysis. So for a soccer team, like what is the position and what is the game, the sport going to require of the athlete? And so for that, I was thinking that like acceleration and deacceleration are going to be huge. Both for offense and for defense. Mobility, especially when they're needing to change directions quickly as a reaction to either like a defender, ball movement, plays. So, and again, that anticipation of what's going to happen next, either the opponent or ball movement, like I mentioned before, change of direction, and then breaking. So when a ball shifts from one defender or one offensive end to another, like having to change directions as who you're defending or where you're moving towards the ball. And then that explosive, the short sprints. So in soccer, they're not running for the entire length of the field. They're going to do shorter, explosive sprints to catch up to the ball or to catch up to an opponent. Okay. So those things that I thought of for the needs analysis really then helped me make the program that I'll talk about here in a minute. So I split it up into two areas, the speed and the agility. And then for speed, one of the the errors that Half and Triplett talked about was overstriding. So there's like this common misconception that if I lengthen my stride, then that'll help me catch up to the opponent. When really it's about stride rate and the frequency and the least amount of contact with the ground. Okay. There's also a big component for speed and also for agility, the perceptual cognitive demands. So like that visual scanning of the field for the player. Decision making when the play is happening or when the defender and the ball move. And then also like the reaction time, especially for like offensive plays or reaction time for defense, and like that guarding that's needed too. So soccer players need to really be able to think quickly when the play moves or when the defender is moving. Okay. And then Half and Triplett also talked about a critical part of increasing speed. Sorry, our heat just kicked on. So a critical part for increasing speed is the amount of the vertical force that's applied to the ground during like that stance phase. And then again, like a coaching cue is like the stride rate, not necessarily your stride length. And then for the agility portion of my program, I really wanted to focus in on like change of direction, because soccer players are frequently asked to do that in a game, in practice, in drills, as a response to an opponent or the ball moving. Okay. So the ground contact time, like I talked about a little bit ago, it influences the change of direction, performance, and like how quickly they're able to change direction. And then again, that perceptual cognitive factor, like the anticipation, the pattern recognizing, so recognizing like the play patterns, and then decision making and reaction time. So again, that is also going to be a part of the agility portion of my programming. And Half and Triplett talked about like there's three main parts of agility training. It'd be strength, the cognitive, conceptual ability, and then the perceptual cognitive ability. Okay. And the change of direction too. Okay. So when I was thinking about a high school soccer team, that could range from freshmen, right out of middle school, who maybe have never played soccer or maybe played soccer, but it wasn't, at the high school competition level. And then, there could be seniors, very seasoned athletes on the team as well. So how could I program movements to focus on foundational footwork, foundational skills that would be necessary for, you know, somebody who might be brand new to soccer coming in high school, and then somebody who has been doing it for, you know, four years. And then this is for preseason, so, you know, maybe the athletes, you know, took the season before off, you know, and really haven't done any kind of conditioning, really haven't been doing any kind of workout regimen. That could be something to keep in mind as well. Or maybe they came from a different sport that wasn't training the same way a soccer team would. You know, if they're coming from, I don't know what sport would come before soccer right offhand. But let's say they were training at the wrestling team. You know, the wrestling team isn't going to be practicing, you know, sprints or necessarily the intense change of direction that's required for a soccer player. So those are things also that I kept in mind, like the ability levels of people on the soccer team, as well as preseason. What were they doing before preseason? Okay. So really, I started with the foundational movements, and then I'll highlight some suggestions for progression. Okay. So the first one, the speed drill. So I had three speed drills, and then 3 agility drills. So the first one is the A skip, and really this would help with like the specific mechanics of running, and then that vertical force production that will help with an increase in speed. So I'll explain it, and then I'll demonstrate it. Okay. So again, there's like the tall stance, so the torso is up. They said to stack the joints. So make sure that the torso, the hips, the knees, the ankles are all in line. Okay. And then you lift the first leg with a bent knee, and the foot of the bent leg should really be like in line with the knee of the leg that's used for stability. And then the first skip, you're driving that bent leg down, and then there's gonna be a slight dorsal flexion. And then you're again remaining tall. It's a coaching cue, remain tall throughout this. And then your arms should move at the same pace as your legs, okay? So quicker arms and slower legs is not proper form, and that would be something for a coach to look out for. And then to return to the starting position, again, you're driving that leg down, and then you're popping the other leg up, okay? So it'll look a little bit like this. I'll do it from the side. And it might be a little awkward for, as you saw probably with me, to make sure your arms and your feet go at the same speed. And that again is something that the coach there can really help athletes see. And even if it's, you know, taking a video and saying, hey, you know, let's look at the rate in which your arms are moving and your feet are moving. Or maybe you're not getting a good enough drive down with your the bent leg. Like those are all things that you can work on with an athlete, especially if this is something that's new to them. Okay. The second one, fast feet. So again, you're starting in that stacked position. So your torso, your hips, your knees, your ankles are all stacked on top of one another. And then the leg that you're going to choose to start with is slightly bent again. And you're going to raise that bent leg's foot up to like the shin of the other leg. And then to return the leg to the starting position, you do it as quickly as possible, but maintain that stacked joint look. So, you know, you don't want your torso to be over your hips or your knees, and you don't want it to be back. You want to make sure they're all stacked, nice neutral stance. Okay. And these, a coaching cue, these are quick and aggressive drives down with your feet. And then a common error is again that your feet are moving faster. There's like this thought that if my feet move faster, then that means my the stride frequency is increased. But really, if your feet are moving fast, but they're still in contact with the ground for a longer period than what they should be, you're not increasing your stride frequency. Really, you're increasing the time that your feet are in contact with the ground, but that's not going to help you with that vertical force that you need to increase your speed. It's quick feet down, quick contact with the ground, and then driving back up, okay? So I will demonstrate this as well. Again, quick touches with the ground with your feet, driving those bent knees down, and again, making sure that you're popping back up when you hit that ground, hit that contact with the ground, okay? And then, okay, the last speed, let me get this adjusted real quick. The last speed drill has to do with shuttles. So the main starting position with this is a low center of gravity, and so you're in that crouching position. So there's a split stance. You're choosing the dominant leg of the athlete to be forward, and then split the leg with the non-dominant leg back. And then cue the athlete to drop that back knee straight down, okay? So having the shin almost parallel with the floor, okay? And then the opposite arm, so if an athlete is, let's say, because I'll be demonstrating I'm right hand dominant, so my right foot will be forward. So my opposite arm would be also forward, okay? And then it would be slightly above my forehead, okay? And then a coaching cue for the athlete is to, when you're going to accelerate, take that first step, you want to push down through the ground, okay? So give them a visual of, like, you know, pushing off, but pushing through the ground to get that first step. And then, you know, you could do this, it could be a progression. So to begin with, you know, you're just asking them to do, just to take off, okay? To do a straight sprint ahead for, I mean, I would say less than 50 meters. This could be, you know, 5 to 15 yards, whatever works best. But you could also use this as a progression to, like, introduce cones. Like, you know, like sprint up to the cone, you know, turn, and then do like an acceleration to the left or acceleration to the right, or decelerate before you get to the cone and then backpedal. So these are all different things you could use for that progression, like if you have an advanced athlete on the soccer team. I'm gonna show you a shuttle just taking off. I'm gonna do it from the side so you can see that crouch position, and then see that explosive first step, okay? I'm not gonna run too far. I'll get a few steps in, but then return back so I can talk about agility. All right, lastly, the agility portion of it. I found a video on YouTube. Cunningham, he videoed this in 2019 about some speed and agility drills that he does for soccer. But again, the first one is really gonna be that forward deceleration. So just like I did with the shuttle, the straightforward shuttle, it's gonna be very similar to that, so I'm not gonna demonstrate it again for the sake of time. But again, it's like 5 or 15 yards, just have cones set out, kind of like what I do, but a little bigger space, and have them accelerate, and then, so they're gonna start in the starting position, okay, and then they're gonna accelerate about half speed to start out with, and then decelerate and stop within 3 steps. So give them a visual of the cone, like, okay, you need to decelerate and stop before you get to that cone by 3 steps, okay? And then the second agility movement is a lateral shuffle and deceleration drill. So again, you start with the crouching, the low center of gravity. In the video, he talked about a coaching cue that says, clawing the ground away sideways. So you were doing a lateral shuffle now. So we're gonna start in our crouching position, sprint forward. When you get to the cone, you're gonna decelerate before you get to the cone, and then move into a lateral shuffle to the other cone, and then accelerate forward, and then there'd be like a second layer. So you would then decelerate, and then you're gonna shuffle in the opposite direction as you did before, okay? And another coaching cue that he talked about in his video is the lower center of gravity. So dropping down for that lateral movement will really help with the speed of it in the change of direction, okay? And then, so I'll go ahead and show that lateral shuffle for just one layer of it. I don't have enough room or cones to show 2. And then I'll come back and talk about the Z drill. And you can do several layers to that for the athlete as well. And then lastly, the Z drill, I'm not gonna demonstrate that because it's very similar to the lateral shuffle that I just did, except that the cones make a Z. So you're doing the same movement, so you're in that crouching position, low center of gravity, clawing the ground away when you're laterally shuffling, okay? But there's a diagonal acceleration piece of it, not a straight forward, okay? Because you're making that Z versus, an L that we just did. Another coaching cue to help with that perceptual cognitive ability, you could use as a coach or instruct the coach to use a whistle or to use like a timer or any like auditory stimuli to help denote like a change of direction or decelerate. That will help build that anticipation with the athletes. And lastly, the thing that wasn't really talked about as far as the prompt, but we read about it in half and triplet, was like a strength component, like a resistance component to any speed and agility. So, for somebody who is more of a novice, there's a need for some kind of strength component to it. So just some examples, like for somebody who is new in the team to, let's say, sports in general, they could do box jumps, where a more advanced athlete could do like Olympic work to work on that concentric explosive power. Like for somebody who's a beginner, drop landings, without any weight, versus somebody who's more advanced could do like work on drop landings during Olympic lifts in that catch phase, okay? And that's really gonna work on the eccentric portion of things. And then for multi-directional strength, for somebody who's new, lunges are great. Whereas somebody who is more advanced, they could do landmine squats. So just thinking about the resistance programming that also needs to couple the speed and agility, okay? And then lastly, what would I do differently if this was a different case study? And I said this probably all week, is really it depends on what sport it is. That's really what is gonna tailor the programming that's designed for the athlete. So if I had chosen, football instead of soccer, I'm gonna have to realize that there are running backs on the team and there are linebackers who are not gonna be sprinting at the same distance or need the same kind of drills, okay? I'm not gonna ask a linebacker to go sprint, 40 meters, because that's not what his or her position is going to ask of him or her. So really just figuring out what the needs analysis would show for a sport, and then we go from there. All right, thanks guys.